Yeah, because I don't remember the name.
It's nice. Here's one. Here's the application.
That's, yeah. And also it shows, he's the owner's email address. Okay. I assume so.
If I ride my bike in the morning, I tend to see you.
I think we should know.
If I ride any other time, I don't get to see you. For the most part.
June 13th?
Sometimes I see
Well, I
Al.
don't know how close is
Yeah.
it to the Gloria's Sport.
Well, typically I leave around 7:30 and head over to the park.
For the 4th of June?
6 days away, right? You're saying June?
June 13th.
Who is that? Dave?
Yes.
Who is this? Which person is
I'm
this?
trying
Hi,
to have
David.
another meeting, as long as they get all their ducks in a row. Okay, good deal then.
John, can you pronounce your last name for me?
Kabord.
Kabor?
Kabord.
Okay,
My printing's not that good.
okay. So, he's the owner. Right?
Okay,
Are we all square now?
I believe so.
All right. Is everybody here? We're waiting on, oh, we're not waiting on.
Al is not coming?
Yeah, he has resigned.
Oh.
I'll tell you why later. Same reason I've almost resigned 2 or 3 times a year for the last 8 years. Almost.
So, get a laugh.
So we're gonna bring her on board?
Yeah, she's on the agenda for the city council, be appointed at their next meeting.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
So she will be at our next meeting.
Okay.
She'll be approved at the next
She's on the next council.
council meeting, yes.
But she could be here tonight.
Yep.
Unofficial.
Yeah. Is she here?
Yes, right there.
Hi, Melissa?
I wonder why the sheriff is here.
Can she?
It's not like they put their board meetings. They had to have a deputy there the last
Well, she can't.
2-3 years.
Yeah, but she's not even.
Are you guys that?
Oh,
Rowdy?
oh, okay.
Okay, our meeting's over.
Goes to the council next meeting.
Okay, I'm gonna unmute the.
What's that, Dave?
Hey, Dave? Yes. We're going to get started here sometime tonight. Can Melissa sit up here?
Yeah, definitely. Is Melissa here? Why don't you join us up here? I'll say this, that Melissa can be part of the, Melissa can be part of the discussion. She just can't vote. She just can't vote. That's
Okay, you understand?
as indicated in our ordinance. That's all stuff.
Everybody ready? Patsy, is everything turned on? Didn't get a chance to look at this, right? Testing, you can hear? Yeah,
One more second, let me do the other ones. Okay, we're good.
Okay. Okay, we'll call to order Planning and Zoning Board meeting. We're at the City Hall Council Chambers, 100 Polk Avenue. This is May 9th, and the time on the wall is 6 p.m. Patsy, can you call roll, please?
Lamar Russell,
Here.
Omar Capellan,
Present.
Dr. John,
Present.
Ronald Friedman,
I'm here.
Harry Pearson,
Here.
John Price.
Present. Okay, so we move on to,
Mr. Chairman,
yes, sir.
I'd like to know who the officer is going to arrest at the end of the meeting.
You, if you don't behave yourself.
Got my, well, I'll sit quietly then.
Okay. You heard that, didn't you? Okay.
You guys just give me the wink when you're ready.
Okay. Okay, first item on the agenda is approval of the meeting, minutes of the meeting from March 14. I'm assuming that all the board members have had the opportunity to look those over. Does anybody have any questions or comments?
Yes, Chairman.
Omar?
My name is on it. It's not in it. We just have to add my
Oh, okay.
me being present.
Yeah,
That's all.
I'll do that.
Patsy, can you add that?
I will.
Okay. Ron?
Page 4, right above reports and discussions, it states that I voted against the ordinance because it did not meet the minimum city code requirements. I did not give a reason for voting, I just did.
It's
Previous
changed.
meeting in March, I had gone into some detail why, but I would ask that that phrase be removed from minutes.
Okay, here,
The original, yes.
okay.
Because that was already sent out. So, his last. Mr. Friedman voting against. No.
Voting against with no description.
I just voted against it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what I have to sign tonight does not include that description.
Fine.
Okay?
Thank you, Patty.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments?
Move to adopt the minutes of March 14th meeting as amended.
Need a second?
Second.
Ron Friedman made the motion, Omar second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Move on to agenda item number 2.
Chair, before you do that, were you going to do the public participation section on the agenda? I think you skipped over it.
Yeah, can I wade in on that?
Sure.
Yeah, what Kristen is referring to is typically, say at like a city commission meeting and generally at board meetings, as you can see on our agenda, there's a section right under, well, it's right after the roll call. It says
Right, public participation, yeah.
That is a opportunity for the public to get up and speak on generally, really anything they would like to speak about, whether it's on the agenda or not.
Okay.
This board historically has not practiced that step or not really recognized that step, so.
Well,
it's-
generally, what we try to do, if there are people that want to talk, we try to pick them up when we're on that
When you're
particular
on the-
agenda,
okay.
agenda item. Is that okay?
Yes, thank you.
Okay,
Sorry.
yeah. All righty, so Dave, would you like to introduce and discuss agenda item number 2, please?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Welcome, everybody. In particular, welcome to our soon-to-be newest member, Melissa Bass. If the board remembers, was interviewed by the board here several months ago. And she will be being considered by the city council at their next meeting, I believe, next week, to be appointed to the board. So welcome. As I indicated earlier, the city ordinance does allow for a person in Melissa's situation, not appointed yet, although recommended by the board to participate in the discussion. She just can't vote this evening. So anyways, welcome. Mr. Chairman, as general, what I'd like to, as generally I handle the meetings, I'd like to kind of go through some slides initially to orient the board to the matter at hand, as well as the members and the public here this evening, and welcome. Nice to have everybody here. And so I'd like to do that, and I'd also like to recognize Omar. He's given me a new toy to play with this evening, and you'll soon see the magical, mysterious things that this can do.
So before you get into your slideshow, should we just go ahead and say that this is agenda item number 2, consideration recommendation for site plan approval for the Golf and Gator Amusement Center expansion, the go-kart track?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, good.
All right, this aerial that we're looking at here is, obviously the site is in red, and it is, and here's the
look how nice that
newfangled, the newfangled abilities. This is North Atlantic here, and we're moving from south to north as we go up the graphic. Again, the piece of property that we're here to discuss this evening is indicated in red. The location of the proposed track is shown in yellow. So you can kind of get a sense of where the proposed expansion is going to occur on the site. Now, the site itself is not expanding. It's just the facilities and the improvements within the existing property.
Can I interrupt here just for a second?
Yes, sir.
Based on that view that you're showing, it looks like part of the cart track will take over part of what is presently the miniature golf course. Are they going to, that's going to go away?
No, Mr. Chairman. What's going to happen in that situation, and that's primarily on the east end of the proposed cart as you get closer to North Atlantic, kind of in this general area right here. This is going to be an elevated track. So the track in that location will actually be over the existing miniature golf facility. So there's no, as part of this proposal, there's no revision or modification or realignment of the miniature golf course itself.
So the question that I have right away is, has the engineering been done? Are we sure that there's no opportunity for golf carts to go flying into the miniature golfers?
Yeah, these facilities, and I'm sure our applicant can speak at greater length to that, and that'll come out in our presentations. But yeah, this is a facility or an improvement, a structure that will be constructed to engineered plans. It meets state and federal safety regulations and requirements. So, you know, our city code, we don't specifically have safety improvements or safety requirements for go-kart tracks. I mean, our city code doesn't go that, is not that extensive. We rely on state and federal requirements, which their engineer will certify to as they submit their plans.
I apologize for sidetracking you. Go ahead and finish what you were doing. I'm sorry.
No, good question. Good question, sir. Thank you. Again, so getting back to the aerial that we're looking at, this road right here is Holman Road. So it's Holman Road is we're running west off of North Atlantic. The entrance to this facility is right about here where the arrow is. And it opens up into the parking lot, which you can see. Can't really see the access point because it's covered with trees. But that's basically what we're looking at here. All right, next slide. Okay, we're kind of out closer to the river now, looking east across the property. And again, this is just a different viewpoint of the property. You can see a little better relation of the proposed track, in relation to the Dollar General, which is located right here. This site here is the Aerial Adventure facility. I'm sure we're all familiar with that. These two projects obviously came through this board, so we're very familiar with those pieces of property. This piece right here, we'll talk about this a little later on in the evening at our next agenda item, but this is a now closed vehicle rental facility. I believe that piece of property is actually for lease now. Moving on. Zoning. This is an important slide. There is the city has, I'll call it a C1 corridor that runs north-south along North Atlantic in this area. And you can see this swath on both the east and west sides of North Atlantic is all zoned C1, which is the city's kind of, I'll call it a neighborhood retail office type commercial zoning district. And the significance of this is several things I want to point out. A, that the proposed use is considered an outdoor recreation use. And those are permitted in the C1 zoning district. That's what happened, that's how this was developed. Aerial adventure is another what's considered an outdoor recreation or outdoor commercial recreation facility, which is permitted in the zoning district. The other thing I want to point out to the board, as well as the folks here in the audience, this piece of property does not extend all the way to the residential district. There's about, I can't recall if it's 50 or 75 foot section between the property and where the commercial ends. And that's significant, and I'll talk a little bit about why that's significant here in a few minutes. But as we move further to the west, you can see that there's different residential districts over here as we get closer to the river. R3 is our most intense residential district. It allows single-family, multifamily, duplexes, apartments. It's a very flexible zoning district. I'll call it to the southwest of the subject property is some property zoned R1. R1 is our most restrictive, residential district. And that's typically single-family homes. That's what we find in R1. Street view. This is off Google Earth, so it's not the greatest picture.
Dave, can I interrupt for a second?
Yeah, sure.
Can you go back one, please?
Uh-huh.
That R3 right there, that's a full lot that continues going to the north. It's not, doesn't become landlocked, right?
No, that R3 property is not landlocked, and that's a good point, Omar. Let me point something out. Okay. These lines that you see, the green line that is shows that where the residential R1 and R3 and C1 stop and start, those are zoning lines. That's where the different zoning districts stop. Those are not property lines.
Thank you.
Okay, so they're two different things.
And then to be clear, this is not a part of the economic overlay district.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it doesn't require any special consideration as a
Correct.
result of that. Okay.
Correct. Now, the R3 piece that we're looking at here, that Omar pointed out, is not landlocked. It actually is it's a flag lot. And it includes this area, this 50, I can't recall if it's 50 or 75 feet. It runs off of Holman Road, runs to the north, and then it opens up into this much larger part of the parcel back here. So that piece of property actually has access onto Holman. Good question. I should have pointed that out. Again, Google Earth Street View. We're looking from North Atlantic west across the existing miniature golf course. And this is really just to kind of get a sense of what we have out there currently. You can see the Dollar General to the right. I think it's Dollar General.
It is.
It is, okay. It is. To the right. So essentially where the proposed track will be going will be right behind that concrete power line, if you can just kind of imagine that. Okay. The next couple of slides are some slides. I was walking the property and took some photos. This is a piece that I'm standing over. I'm kind of looking to the northeast across the site where the track will be located towards Dollar General. And essentially where the track will be located, if you look in the extreme left-hand side of this photo, this trailer right here, the track is going to run east to that blue tarp and a little bit further to the north. So it's going to be along that northern property line in that area of the property. This is a view to the west. So the track, again, is going to end kind of down in this area. And I wanted to include this photo because you can just get a sense of it's a pretty heavily vegetated area as you move west off this site. And as you continue further west through these trees, there are some single-family homes as you get down closer to the river. Okay, I'm going to go back to the aerial, and I'll read quickly my staff report. We've covered most of the important stuff. Again, we're here this evening to talk about a site plan approval for property at 6355 North Atlantic Avenue. The property is a little over 2 acres in size and is zone C1, which allows for the proposed use. There is I'll kind of characterize it as a mixed bag of zoning and land use in this area, as indicated from the zoning map that we looked at. You've got office uses across the street over here. You've got retail here. You've got residential to the west. You've obviously got retail to the north. You've got recreation uses just to the north of that. So it really is kind of a mixed bag when it comes to zoning and land uses. Obviously, the subject parcel is the site of an existing miniature golf course. The proposal is a continuation of the development trend that's occurring in this area. We've had a number of development projects within the last couple of years right here, right in this general area, to include another outdoor recreation facility. The proposed expansion includes the construction and operation of an elevated electric go-kart facility. A new 2,823 square foot, two-story pit stop building is proposed. And let me point that out as well. The track itself is going to be in this area. I'll call it the larger kind of elongated rectangle here to the extreme north. This area, this smaller area, more squarish rectangle, if that makes sense, to the south is going to be where this two-story pit stop building is going to be located. Retention. They're going to be removing some of the parking lot, as we can see, for the cart in the building. Retention, any new required retention is going to be going under the track. And again, if there's any specific questions about that, the applicant and the owner are here this evening. Access, as I indicated earlier, is from Holman Road via an existing driveway there on the south along the south property line. Currently, the property contains 78 parking spaces, and those are primarily on the west side of the property, kind of in this area. Obviously, one of the things that we always look at is when somebody's proposing to take away parking spaces. That's always raises a red flag. That's one of the things that we want to look at pretty carefully, which we have. We took a look at the proposed uses, in particular go-kart facilities. And our code, again, really doesn't specifically talk about go-kart facilities or miniature golf with respect to parking spaces. It's silent to both of those uses. So our code goes on to say, if the specific use being proposed isn't included in the code, then it's basically staff's responsibility to take a look at the similar uses in the code, and kind of that will help drive the analysis on how much parking is required, which we've done. And I took a next step, and I went and looked at some of the surrounding communities and what kind of parking standards they have for these uses. And I was fortunate, the city of Cocoa actually calls out these two specific uses. And you can see in my in the staff report, I talk a little bit about that. And in general, the city, if we applied the city of Cocoa's standards to what's being proposed, the existing miniature golf facility as well as the proposed track, it would require 38 spaces, and that's exactly how many spaces is being proposed on the site plan.
I think the analysis you made is quite reasonable.
Thank you, Ron. Yeah, it's you know, sometimes you kind of operating it feels like you're without a net. Sometimes you're trying to make the best of a situation, and I feel comfortable about that. I always am much more comfortable when I can look and see what other communities are doing. There's established standards, and that, so that helped out immensely in this situation.
So if I'm doing my math correctly, the developer's taking away 40 parking spaces, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. At the bottom of the first page is a table that shows the required setbacks as well as the proposed setbacks. And, you know, I guess the bottom line is they're meeting or exceeding all required setbacks in the site plan. On the top of page 2, it talks a little bit about, I won't go into this in detail, but these, and you guys are very familiar with this, but it talks about requirements and process of the site plan approval to include the checklist and all of those type things. The first, second, third, the fourth paragraph talks about traffic analysis. And this is this proposed go-kart facility is really not going to be generating a whole lot of traffic. You can see that it's only generating 2 p.m. peak hour trips. So basically, if you look at the full study, the traffic is really kind of dispersed through the whole day. And again, the peak hour, which our code requires to be looked at, is in the p.m. And I think it was between 5 and 6. I don't recall off the top of my head, but generating very little traffic, not going to be a huge impact to the in this case, Holman Road or the intersection there.
You know, that's interesting. Earlier this week, I was at the county TPO meeting, and traffic was a discussion about congestion on roads and that kind of thing, A1A. And what was brought up at the meeting was that they're not taking into consideration weekends, which seems to draw more traffic from surrounding municipalities and counties, because we have a beach that people can go to and they're not charged, and, you know, blah, 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 and there's port and all that kind of stuff. So I'm not suggesting that there's anything wrong with this survey. I'm just thinking that maybe in the future that might be a consideration that we want to have.
Okay.
Yeah, I just a thought, that's all.
Okay.
Yeah.
As far as the utilities goes, obviously there's utilities on the site. City of Cocoa water, City of Cape Canaveral wastewater, and as I indicated earlier, retention will be handled on site via retention and retention ponds and swales. As required by the city code, the Community Appearance Board in April considered the request, and really for the benefit of the folks here in the audience, the Community Appearance Board is a lay board, much as the Planning and Zoning Board, appointed by the City Council. And the Community Appearance Board is responsible for looking at the architectural renderings and color palette that's proposed, and to get a sense and to make a finding and a ruling whether what's being proposed is consistent, and I think the key word is harmonious with the surrounding area, and the development pattern and development trend in that specific location. And in April, the Community Appearance Board considered the request. There was a public hearing involved, and at the end of the public hearing, they voted in favor. They granted what's called a level 1 approval, which is required for all new commercial type development. And that's really, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to kind of just editorialize just for a second.
Okay.
And again, this may be mostly for the residents and the citizens involved in the audience this evening. But what we're here doing this evening is to go through the site plan approval process, and we've been tasked, at least in this forum, considering this approval this evening, to determine whether the application is consistent with the code requirements for a site plan approval. And site plan approval is a very technical review. There's not a lot of what I'll call nebulous, artsy kind of discretionary stuff going on for site plan approval. It is very much technically driven, and it's more of a science than it is an art, the site plan side, at least the site plan approval. So anyways, I just wanted to put that out there. And I just have one more thing to say, that there are still a few more approvals, assuming that the board recommends approval this evening. Assuming that, I'm not saying you're going to, but if you should choose to approve it this evening, There will be several approvals that are still required. We have what's called an administrative site development permit, and that is the applicant will have to show and document that they're going to be consistent with all of our basically on-site stormwater, NPDES requirements. Basically, we want to see they're going to be silt fencing it, so we're not going to have a lot of impact off-site. And the other is we'll be doing a concurrency review. That's required of all new projects. And what that means is that the public facilities are available to accommodate this project. In this case, the demand on the public facilities isn't a whole lot. And those public facilities include water, sewer, stormwater, schools, police, those type things. So I wouldn't anticipate there being a problem with the concurrency review on this particular project. Mr. Chairman, I guess to really wrap up at least this portion of it, the community development staff recommends that the Planning and Zoning Board take the following action. Recommend approval to the Community Development Director for site plan approval for the Golf and Gator expansion for property located at 6355 North Atlantic Avenue, as generally indicated in attachment 4 to this report. Quickly, if I can indulge me just for a second, I'll quickly run through these attachments. I know you're getting tired of me listening to me, but the first 4 pages in the attachments are all photos of the zoning and aerials. Much of what the folks have seen here this evening up on the monitors. Attachment 2 is the actual application, which identifies the applicant, the owner, what's being proposed, as well as there's a site plan checklist that, as I indicated earlier, spells out all of the criteria that needs to be addressed. Ron?
David, I have an observation and then a request of the unit. Doesn't affect this project, but on the checklist, under finished grades to the following, it asked for 10 inches of the adjoining property. And I checked, and that's what the code says. And I'm just guessing that's the Scrithers area. It should have been 10 feet rather than 10 inches. 10 inches just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And I would make the request then that perchance you propose a change to the ordinance to correct that.
Yes, sir. That is, and I'll explain what that really, to help everybody understand that. What that does is that allows the city engineering staff to look, it's really primarily for stormwater. What's happening adjacent to the site? Is stormwater going to run away from the property? Is it going to run to the property? So we want to see a 10-foot adjacent to the property to kind of see what's going on off-site where stormwater could affect the subject property. So thank you, Ron. We'll Patsy and I will get on that first thing tomorrow. And attachment 3 is an important attachment. It is a letter of recommendation from the city engineer. He's reviewed this site plan and had a few back and forth with the applicant, and he is at a position on April 17th of this year to recommend approval of it. So, Mr. Chairman, that concludes my presentation. I know the applicant and the owner are here if you'd care to hear from them. But
Okay. David, I want to thank you and your staff for doing such a good job, comprehensive job in preparing this. So there's somebody that represents the developer here, is that correct? Do you care to say anything? Or do you, I mean, we can have our discussion and then you can, okay, so here's the process. Here's what we'll do then, okay? We'll open it up for discussion to the board. Once that's done, then we'll open it up to the public so that they have the opportunity to speak. And by the way, once again, for you folks, if you plan to speak, make sure you fill out one of these cards, pass them in to Patsy. And we'll give you the opportunity then to respond, okay? Are we all right with that?
So the applicant should be given the chance to speak, and then the public.
Okay.
And then the board should.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm happy to swear everyone in as a group who wants to give testimony if you'd like me to do that.
Sure.
Okay. So if you intend to speak on this matter, you want to stand and raise your right hand. Okay. I do solemnly swear to give the whole truth and nothing but the truth, and say I do in unison. Okay, thanks.
Okay. So you want the developer to go ahead and speak
Yes,
first?
the
Okay.
applicant.
Introduce yourself, please.
Good evening, Mike Allen with Allen Engineering. I'm representing the owner, Mr. Kabord, and the expansion of his Golf and Gator to be known as the Thunderbolt go-kart track. Mr. Dickey did a wonderful job explaining what we've been going through and what the project is all about. Just wanted to add a few things, reemphasize, it is an elevated go-kart track. The go-karts will be electric, and there's been some discussion. There was a discussion at the Community Appearance Board about, landscaping, noise, and lighting. We listened, we understand those concerns, but with the electric go-karts, the decibel levels of these carts are about, 50. Published reports on other decibel readings for, say, a normal conversation is, normal conversation is about 60. So these go-karts really aren't very loud. So I don't know that you're adding much noise to what's going on at the facility. The pit stop building is an open air building. First floor will be, for the storage of the go-karts. Second level is just an observation area for parents to go watch their kids or friends and family to go upstairs and watch what's going on the track. But it really will be a nice addition to the facility out there. Mr. Kabord really does take pride in the landscaping that he has provided out there on the site. We will be impacting, I think, about 14 palm trees with the construction of the go-kart track, but our intent is to remove those and replace them elsewhere out in the parking facility, which is, currently lacks a little bit of landscaping right now. There are some perimeter, oak trees that we are not touching, but we will be filling in those islands with new palm trees and what have you. Lighting was an issue at the Community Appearance Board as well. We've gone back to the electrical engineer and asked him to revisit the lighting. He recently gave us a new lighting plan that reduces the lighting at the property lines to 0.2 foot candles or below, which is current code. So we've listened, we've tried to accommodate everything, and I just haven't officially submitted it to Mr. Dickey just because I don't have the signed and sealed prints with me, but it will be coming after y'all's recommendation. So at that, I'll answer any questions you all may have and hopefully move forward.
Now the audience.
May I ask one
Sure.
question? On the, one of the exhibits here is the aerial view with the zoning. It does show that the parking lot extends beyond the property line.
It does. Currently, the west portion of the parking lot is on somebody else's property. We are not proposing to use that portion of the facility or that portion of the existing parking lot to meet code requirements for the racetrack.
Thank you.
Yep.
So at this point then, I think we can open up to questions and comments from the audience. I have just a couple people here. I guess one is Bill. Bill, pronounce your last name for me, please.
Kehoe.
Bill Kehoe. Bill, if you'd come up, introduce yourself, tell us where you live, and then and if you can limit your comments to about 3 minutes or so, that'd be great.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members. My name is Bill Kehoe. I live at 204 Holman Road, which David didn't point out is directly across from the ingress to Golf and Gator. And I'm certainly not here to oppose anything. You guys got permitted use to do that. However, we do have a couple concerns. I'm glad to hear that he's reducing the parking spaces. However, if he can cram 78 spaces in there, that's fine. I just don't want to have it increased over that at the end of the day. One of the things that we have 5 owners in our condo complex. They all were notified about, or excuse me, we all just found out about this the other day. And one of the things that we're a little bit concerned about is we just found out about it. We live directly across the street. There's a notification that's about this big on A1A. I drive by it since January or since whenever it was placed there, and looking for it yesterday, trying to find it was very difficult. So if there's a way that this board or the county or the city commission can, notify members of the community who are going to be affected, so we can at least come to the community appearance board, which you already had. We're directly across. We pull out right next to each other.
Yeah.
So we didn't even know until yesterday, so we're here. We all talked about it. It's a permitted use, so, obviously he's got the right to do whatever he wants on his property, and it's not that bad.
Unfortunately, the purpose of this agenda item is for site plan approval.
Okay, I'll take
Your
that up.
suggestions are well taken. What I might suggest to you is that you take the opportunity to drop in on the community development director and share that conversation with him. I'm sure he's.
Absolutely. Is that him?
Yeah.
I'll talk to him. No, not a problem. Just want to make you aware, so hopefully we could change that. Now, we do have some issues with potential ingress and egress out of their part. Our property is posted, and we're going to enforce trespassing. We've had, in the past, several issues. I just want to put it on notice that hopefully he can let his, guests know that don't come into our property, park on our property, and do all that stuff. We're here to be a good neighbor, and, hopefully his little business venture is successful. And, as far as I'm concerned, I don't really have any issues with it. And, hope he does, makes lots of money, because that's good for the community. So that's about all I had to say. So
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. And then, Mr. Osborne, did you want to talk about this? Once again, Ray, if you would introduce yourself, tell us where you live, and try to limit your comments to 3 minutes, please.
Yes, absolutely. My name is Ray Osborne, 209 Holman Road. And you said something earlier about the red line here, and I wasn't too sure about this. But one thing I'm concerned about is sound mitigation. And I was going to make a suggestion or see if there was an opportunity where this red line is and the yellow line, and you can see where there's some parking pavement there. So I don't know if this is actually owned by the owner or not, but I was wondering if more trees, maybe native trees like live oaks, could be planted there, which would mitigate some of the sound coming over to our property. So I think that might be an opportunity to plant some more trees and to help us out by preventing the sound from coming over.
Okay.
Do we know the answer to that, though? Is that land there?
I can give you a quick answer.
Okay.
Let me go to another slide, and that'll help drive this conversation. Okay, this is the important slide. If you can see, as you see from this slide, the zoning is critical. The zoning really drives what landscaping standards are going to be required. And generally, if you have commercial property adjacent to other commercial property, the landscaping standards really drop off. And I think Ray's house is it this one, Ray?
Yeah,
or
that one right there.
It's the one to the south here?
Yes.
Okay. You can see that this piece of property stops here. And so there's commercial to the south, to the west of it. So that technically this property is bounded or adjacent to other commercial property. And because of that, the landscaping standards for the subject piece that we're here talking about tonight drop off. So we will make sure that the code requirements are implemented. They're going to meet all the standards. So I mean, from a city perspective, it's hard to say you will do this, because our codes, I really can't point to any specific code and said, you have to do this. But this might be an opportunity. I'm not going to put Mr. Kabord on put him on the spot, but I mean, you could see if he's wants to be a good neighbor and commit to something. But all I can say is we'll make sure that all the city landscaping buffer requirements and tree planting requirements are are done according to the code.
Okay, but below, south of that little red line, we can't do anything because it'd be a different property owner, or would that be Mr. Kapoor's property too?
I'm sorry, Ray, I didn't follow your question.
Okay, the land just south of the red line there.
Yeah, this
Right, and
flag,
before
part of the flag lot?
Yeah, before the grade line, would that be Mr. Kapoor's property, the property developer, or would that be somebody else's property?
That's owned by BRB, Bob Bogger owns that piece of property.
Oh, he owns that property?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so it would be nice if we could have trees in there, but we'll have to go to him on that, I guess, it's a different client. Okay, landowner. Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank
Good
you,
to be
sir.
back again.
Appreciate it. That's all I have for people that wanted to comment on this particular agenda item. Anybody else? Okay, let's bring it back to the board then. Fellow board members, questions and comments? Let's start down at the extreme end there with the handsome Mr.
I'm at the
Dr.
extreme-
John?
I'm at the extreme end. This retention pond under the track sounds very novel. Has it been done before in our city? And how does it work without going into too much detail?
I don't know if it's been done elsewhere in the city, but because it is an elevated track, I mean, we have room to work up underneath the track. We're going in, removing some impervious area that's currently existing. And, with the green space, it just kind of made sense to depress it a little bit and hold, believe we're holding an extra inch of stormwater. What's not commonly known out there is there are exfiltration trenches around that property. You have stormwater that's being handled in the ponds of the golf course. So all in all, currently there's about 2 inches of stormwater retention on site. With the addition of the dry retention we're proposing on the track, we're upping it to about 3 inches of total retention on site, which greatly exceeds the requirements of the city. So.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm assuming that since Mr. Picard recommended approval on this, that he's already looked into that and it meets code requirements.
Yeah, as part of their submittal, they're required to submit what are called stormwater calculations. And that shows exactly how they're going to accommodate, I think it's 1 inch of stormwater on the site. That's what our code requires. And Mr. Picard's been through that and kind of verifies those calculations, and yeah.
Okay.
So you can hear that Mike's saying that they're handling 3 inches, so that's significantly above and beyond what our city code requires.
Dr. John, is that good? Melissa, right?
That's me. I'm just getting my first look at the full-size plans, so don't have too much to say about that, but I'm happy to see that it's an electric track. That would have been a concern as far as emissions and sound.
The gas would have been hard to sell, but the
Right.
electric, I
Seems like that
feel very
fits with-
comfortable,
Yeah.
that the noise levels won't be
Yeah,
high at all.
so I appreciate that.
Omar?
I have no comments, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Ron?
First item that Dr. John mentioned about the safety, and looking at the plans, I can see how almost impossible it would be for the cars to fly off the track. But I do have a general question. I know amusement areas, Ferris wheels, things like that, tilt-a-wheel, there's a routine state inspection. Because your track is partly elevated, does the state get involved in any inspections? Do you know?
Yes, they do.
Okay. Yeah, I have some comments on the plans. Surprise, surprise. First of all, on the site plan data sheet, it does not provide the percentage of parking devoted to landscaping, which is required by the code. On the listing, it shows the front setback as 8.87 feet, which is obviously an error. It also incorrectly shows the rear setback as 0.34 feet, which is also an error. The surveyor certification is incomplete. Doesn't show water and sewer service to the proposed building. And City code does require they provide plumbing to serve the needs of the customers and employees. They must connect to the city sewer, which would be obvious. It doesn't show anything about the irrigation system for the landscaping. And as a comment, the refuse slab and container is not on the property, and it will not be accessible during construction. There's a silt fence that goes all along the property line, so you will have no access to your trash bin, even if, I'm assuming you had permission from the adjoining property owner to locate it there.
Yes, but that dumpster pad is being relocated as part of this site plan approval. It'll be it's currently off-site, but it will be moved on-site, as part of this approval.
If the board would like, I've prepared some blow-ups to show the board exactly where it's being proposed on site in anticipation of this question. Okay. Ron, I'm starting to think like you, so I don't know if it's good or not.
That's good.
You're getting to know me too well.
Thank you.
I hope I have enough for everybody.
Yeah.
If not, I'll give them.
I'm gonna give this, well,
Here, Dave.
Just in case you didn't.
I have enough. I think I have enough.
I'll just take it home and throw it in the trash can anyway, so we just.
Show
Yes,
the
okay.
relocated dumpster site.
All right.
Okay. Now, is that going to become the permanent location?
Yeah, we'll revise the
plan?
approved site plan
Okay.
to,
So that essentially will cut off the access to the adjoining commercial property until it's developed later on.
yeah. I believe there's gonna be a 6-foot
Okay.
fence also erected along the property.
Correct.
That's fine. I'm done.
Anything else, Ron? Okay. Harry, questions or comments?
I don't want to get far away from the site plan, but I'm remembering a similar situation, and it concerned security. How many electric carts will you have, and how will they be stored overnight?
I believe the magic number is 30 carts. They'll all be stored on the first floor of that pit stop building, and then they'll have roll-down doors to lock them in and secure them overnight.
They will be locked up securely
Yes, sir.
because
The charging mats are actually inside the pit stop building, so, they'll want to pull the go-karts inside, get them up on those charging mats and let them regenerate overnight. So, but there are, I think, did a rendering go out with the package?
No.
Okay. It does show garage doors on the first floor that allows him to lock and secure that bottom floor.
Okay, so adventurous people could not get on the site and
Well, adventurous people can do what.
get one of these electric carts and then
Right.
have a nice drive out in the street with
It would be difficult
Because
for them to do it, but I'm not going to say they can't.
Exactly that has happened.
So, no, it would be a locked and secured
In the
facility.
past, okay. That's all I have.
Lamar?
I'm satisfied that all the technical requirements have been covered. I have no questions.
And I too am satisfied with all the technical considerations. The one question that I have, and it may not be appropriate, and if that's the case, just tell me.
Okay.
In future or in recent development projects, one of the things that the developers have apparently volunteered to do would be put in charging stations for cars.
Oh, electric charging
Yeah,
stations?
electric charging stations. Is that something that was a consideration for this project, or is it even appropriate to talk about for this project?
I think it's always appropriate to talk about. It's not a code requirement. However, we have been very successful with our developer partners on installing a certain number of electric vehicle charging stations on their projects. I will say generally, they've been part of a larger project, much more, I don't know what the budget is for this.
Yeah, I don't know the considerations for this.
Yeah, typically it's part of a larger project where there's a little bit more there's a little more cash floating around in the budget. We can certainly talk to the applicant about that. It's a very big priority. I know the city and all of our projects, we're installing them. We've installed several here. We have some over at the library. We've put some over at some of the parks. It's a big deal for us, and I know that the developers that we've been working on, the larger projects, have been very cooperative. The new hotel going in right now, I'll talk about that a little bit later. They're putting them in, so.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say it's not really appropriate for a project this size. I overlook Manatee Park, and I see a couple of cars come there at 10 in the morning, and they're there till 4 or 5 in the afternoon. And, I'd hate to see one or two with parking spaces, which are maybe a little tight for that, just taken up by somebody getting the free charge.
That happens here at City Hall, too.
The library, too.
Yeah.
Okay, any additional questions or comments? And I guess we're ready for a motion.
Just like, David, am I correct in assuming that the final plans that you approved will take into account the errors?
I'm going to go through your comments. I can specifically address one of them. I hope in cooperation with Mike, that is regarding the utilities going to this proposed building. There aren't any. And this is really going to be, if any of the customers or employees need to use, I'll call the facilities, they'll be directed to the existing.
To the existing Golf and Gator. Actually, you're going to actually have to go in that building to buy your ticket to then go to the golf cart facility. So we are not proposing any water sewer at this time to the new pit stop building. We may extend a water line just for wash down or something of that sort, but that would be about it.
David, check section 110-481.
I will.
Not now, but, okay?
Before I.
Or would you like me to quote it?
No.
Okay.
No. I bet you could, too. I'll check it out, Ron.
All right.
I'll check out all the comments that you've made, and Mike and I'll address those that need to get addressed.
Okay. With nothing else, then I think we're ready for a motion.
I move that the Planning and Zoning Board recommend approval of the Coaster Thunder Volt Track site plan.
Motion made by Ron. We have a second.
Second.
Harry, second. Patsy, call roll, please.
Lamar Russell,
4.
Dr. John,
4.
Ronald Friedman,
4.
Harry Pearson,
4.
Omar Capellan,
For it.
John Price.
For the motion. Okay, unanimous vote. Okay, so we move on to, since we have no more new business, we move on to reports and open discussions, and there is an item there. And so we can get to that, certainly. The item is vehicle rental facilities. David, do you want to initiate a conversation on that?
Yeah, I'd love to, and I look forward to this conversation. And this will be more of an informal, since it's more of a discussion item, I'm not going to.
This is not an action item.
Right, not an action item. This is more of a discussion, policy discussion about, and for purposes of the folks sitting in the audience, the Planning and Zoning Board is an advisory board to the City Council. They make recommendations to the council primarily on land use issues. And a particular land use issue has come up, and the City Council has asked that the P&Z Board discuss this. So that's kind of what we're here doing. Again, we're not going to take any official action this evening. Really, as a staff person, I'm here to listen to you. I'd like to get some direction, one way or the other. And based on the direction, we may or may not do something with this item. We've done this in the past, and so this is going to be similar to what we've done in the past.
So before we provide you with any direction, won't you step us through this thing word by word?
Word by word. All right, Mr.
Or
Chairman.
to the best of your ability.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate you cutting me some slack there. Vehicle rentals. I hope you've all had a chance to read. It's just 2 pages, so there's not a lot of background material. But this issue does have a lot of history in the city, though, I'll say that. As you can see from the first page of the agenda item, several years ago, in 2016, the City Council adopted an ordinance which I'll say reworked many of the permitted uses and special exceptions in our various zoning districts. And that happens on a regular basis. I mean, those are very much hardcore policy direction that the City Council provides. And in this particular case, there was a number of uses that came under scrutiny. One of them was vehicle rentals. And what I mean by vehicle rentals is a U-Haul facility, Budget or Hertz, both automobile and truck. They're both encapsulated in vehicle rentals. Mm-hmm. So what the City Council did back in 2016, and I'm really just kind of cutting to the chase here. They approved this ordinance, and as a result of this ordinance, vehicle rental was no longer allowed in our commercial districts. Up to this point, it was allowed as a special exception in C1 and C2 zoning districts. Because the council adopted this ordinance, that was taken away. You could no longer ask for a special exception in C1 and C2, and the council said the only place vehicle rentals can happen is in M1, our industrial districts. And from this map, you can see that the industrial districts are blue, right up here and over here. So primarily on the north end of the city, adjacent to the port. And the logic was, well, that's where most of the vehicle rental traffic is occurring, primarily the automobile side. So this did a few things. The first thing it did was it made the existing vehicle rental facilities non-conforming. So those that were there prior to the ordinance, which were permitted through the special exception process, now became non-conforming. And what that means for the residents and kind of a refresher for the P&Z board is that when a use is non-conforming, what that means is it's still legal. You can continue to use it and operate that use, but you cannot expand it. You cannot relocate it. You can't, basically what you have is what you get. And so that's what happened with vehicle rentals. And you can see from the aerial that I have, or the map, we do have several vehicle rental facilities in the city. And I apologize, I can't remember each one of them, what they are. Maybe
Hertz.
Hertz is on the north end?
Yep.
Okay, and they're signified by these stars. The red ones are existing, they're operating, up and running. The kind of the aqua blue ones have been closed down. We have another one right here.
Budget, I believe.
Budget?
Yes, sir.
This was the U-Haul, the truck facility that, of course, when Cumberland Farms came along, Spaceport Amoco went away. And that special exception was associated with Spaceport Amoco. Mm-hmm. So that facility went away. We have one here.
Thrifty.
Thrifty, thank you. And we had one down at the southern end of the city, which I mentioned earlier. It was directly south of Golf and Gator.
Yeah, that was national.
And was that Enterprise?
National.
Enterprise or national, yeah.
Okay, and that's recently closed as well. There's a big for lease sign on it. And I think what's happening is they're migrating up towards the port or into the port. So because these are all non-conforming uses, when they're discontinued, and when I do this in this kind of emotion, those are all legal defined terms. So when these properties, these non-conforming uses discontinue, they cannot reestablish. And so in effect, what happens is the concept is non-conforming uses over time, they kind of go away and they're not allowed to come back in. So over time, you get rid of these non-conforming uses. It's kind of the concept behind that whole thing.
Can they exchange hands?
Pardon?
Can they exchange ownership and still be under conforming? And
Generally, ownership doesn't affect it.
Okay.
They can change ownership. And you can see this is the case here. We've only had this ordinance in place for, a couple of years, and we're already starting to see, 2 of the 5 are already gone and can't be replaced. So the logic and it's happening, it's unfolding, and we're seeing it. It's doing what it was meant to do. And I'm not going to go through all the policy background, but all the bullets on the first page. I think the point I want to make here is that the city's policy regarding vehicle rentals has kind of been a mixed bag. It's kind of been all over the place. Lamar can probably speak to that, much more than I can. But historically, they were allowed in association with a service station. Back, I think it was in '03, there was an ordinance that was proposed that would allow them to be a freestanding facility. And that was denied. But in '03, they established these, the council established an ordinance that allowed them to be freestanding, and that's how we came about with these existing car facilities. So anyways, I'm just going to read the last 2 paragraphs on page 2 verbatim. As indicated above, with the adoption of ordinance number 0216, council signaled that new vehicle rental facilities would no longer be allowed in the city's commercial districts. Additionally, existing facilities would be considered non-conforming and could not relocate or expand. The impetus behind the new policy was to relocate these facilities from the city's main transportation corridors. Due to the nature of the use, code enforcement actions to maintain an orderly appearance, specifically with those parcels, were routine. It was reported by facility operators that they had no control over when and how many vehicles would be dropped off. This created a negative visual impact to surrounding residents and visiting motorists, in particular over the weekends and outside of typical business hours. And I can tell you, I received a lot of calls from council members, from residents about trying to stay on top of these vehicle rental facilities. They were just becoming an eyesore, frankly. And I think a lot of that was why the council decided to do what they did in '16. Now, the other, but I'll say this on the other hand. I mean, obviously, these facilities provide a important and necessary service to residents. So it really comes down to these services something that the city of Cape Canaveral wants in the community? Is it outweighed, the visual and the code enforcement issues and the appearance, is that outweighed by the service that these facilities provide residents of the beaches? Let's kind of boil it down, that's kind of what it comes down to. So I guess what I'm looking for is if you can kind of give me some input and some thoughts on this use, whether it's appropriate to allow them back into the city in some manner, just general, let's talk about it.
Okay. So before we go to the board, there's one person in the audience, John Kabord.
Yes.
John, you want to share your feelings? Introduce yourself, tell us where you live, and
All right, good
try
evening.
to limit
I
your
live
comments
at,
to 3 minutes, please.
Good evening. John Kabord. I'm representing Yogi Patel, the owner of Yogi's. I think you all know where that is, at the south end of Cape Canaveral, next to the 7-Eleven, across from the, I think it's Ocean Palms Mobile Home Park. And he's run that facility for several years. He was originally, how we got here was, years ago, he was granted a special exception to store boats and trucks on his facility. He never really got into operating that. Like Mr. Dickey told you, the commission, based on its desired look of the city, imposed some restrictions and made a non-conforming use out of the operation of a rental car business. We want to focus really not on rental cars. We don't desire to have rental cars. Our goal tonight is to have you give us the means to get back in front of the city commission to give them an opportunity to yay or nay our request. We want, for Yogi's property, the C1, we want in that area the ability to operate and provide U-Haul services to the citizens of Cape Canaveral. You know, we've got support by surrounding property owners. You know, we've got revenue records that show that, yes, in fact, we are extending a service to the members. Y'all have probably used U-Haul in the past. Right now, you have to go to COCO to obtain those services. When the service station closed, so did the U-Haul operations. Then Yogi got into the U-Haul operations. He doesn't make a lot of money doing it. You know, it's more of a pain than a revenue producer. But, you know, he has always wanted to help the people in our community. He's very much a part of our community. And that's why he's spending some money here trying to, you know, trying to get permission again and have a chance to go before the commissioners to see if they would revisit their elimination of the or imposition of the rental car prohibition, and maybe somehow try to tailor it just to U-Haul. Put some guidelines, some standards in there that will appease anybody that has a negative view or image of that. We can limit it to numbers. We can, you know, but again, we are just focused on trying to resurrect his ability to provide U-Haul truck services or rental services exclusive of automobiles to the local community. You know, he's next to 7-Eleven. That's a very intensive use. You know, he's on A1A. His property is already fenced, and like I say, just give us a chance to get back in front of the commission, and maybe they'll see fit to accommodate us. I think what Dave is looking for is you know, does he make an effort to draft something that, based on the input from y'all, that could serve as a mechanism to get us back before the commission. So kind of in a nutshell, that's what our goal is. That's what we're asking, the reasons we're asking. I think the mitigating circumstances, and, you know, maybe there's a set of restrictions that we can come up with that'll, you know, satisfy everybody who has any concerns.
Mr. Kaborg, if you would, please kind of walk me back through this. Does the U-Haul facility presently exist?
No. It did. Code enforcement tagged us. We complied with code enforcement, and we vacated and eliminated that.
So that's not in operation now?
No.
Okay.
And, you know, that was in accordance with an agreement that we had because we were clearly not in compliance at that point.
And Dave, are special exceptions still an option on this kind of thing? So it would require a whole new code, right?
Yeah, no, the city council in 16 eliminated that. You can't even ask for it in the commercial districts anymore. I mean, they made a policy decision. Any new vehicle rental facilities are going to be located in the industrial districts in the city. Mm-hmm. Those existing ones can continue to run and operate. Mm-hmm. But new ones have to go to the north side of the city.
You might want to just hang out there. I'm going to take this back to the board and see if they have any questions or comments. Okay, thank you. Dr. John? No questions? Okay. Melissa?
I don't think I have any question.
Okay. Omar?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a couple of comments. One is very generic, and I think Dave it may sound a little. I'll just get to it. The definition of vehicle. You know, these days everything needs to be a bit more defined, and by that I mean we have now. You can go and rent a scooter. You can go rent a little thing with like a basket on the side, and you can take people with you or something like that. That's a vehicle. They're renting it. So are they allowed in or not? What do they follow? What kind of rules do they fall under? Are they slow vehicles? You know, what are they? To me, they're still vehicles. So I think by just using existing vehicle rental facilities, then it should be a catch-all. But I don't think that's the case because, like I said, we see scooter rental places here in the city, I believe. Or they can come in, and I'm not sure they're going to fall under that, do they?
Omar, let me stop you there. I don't think there are any scooter rental places in the city.
What is that? And it may be gone by now. It's close to the Sun City or Sunseed.
Oh, you're talking about
Just north of it.
the kayak rental. I don't know if they have motorized vehicles down there. I think it's mostly kayaks and paddle boards. And,
Yeah.
Didn't they have a scooter with like not tandem, side-by-side people? Something
I don't
like that.
believe so.
I don't
believe
don't
so, no.
think so.
Okay, so we don't have
I
anything
think
in
the
this.
closest rental facility is at 520 and A1A, yeah.
Yeah, Cocoa Beach. Okay. I normally get them confused. If you remember my first interview here. City limits are always been blurry. But in any case, I don't know if it applies or not, but what would you, well, let's bring it up. Let's say somebody brings an application to bring scooters. Is that catch-all in here?
This scooter rental or bike rental isn't really contemplated regarding our conversation tonight. I mean, I think our conversation tonight is specifically about the Hertzes, the U-Hauls, the rental companies for automobiles and trucks. If we need to tweak the definition to clarify that and to make sure we're very, I mean, everybody beyond a shadow of a doubt knows what we're talking about, we can certainly do that. But that's really the scope of what our conversation is this evening.
And one input that I have as an end user, this is reflection of an end user about U-Hauls and such. When I use it, I did use it when it was Amoco Seaport. One thing is I just get online and I look them up. So to me, if they're in the M1, it doesn't bother me. In fact, to me, they're eyesores for the most part. So if they're hidden over there on the M1, as an end user, I have no problem with that. So I'm talking more of an end user and a citizen look. To me, they're eyesores. And M1, I go wherever they are. I wouldn't like to go to Cocoa. I'd rather go to M1 and pick it up. But that's for U-Haul. Yeah, I don't think they're looking for people to drive by to come in. Oh, I need a truck today. So
I need to make an apology. There was another person, Bill. Bill, pronounce your last name again for me, please. Kehoe. I had submitted a card and I jumped right by him. I apologize.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Bill Kehoe, 204 Holman Road. Certainly, I would support the U-Haul, but what I'm talking about is we live right behind the National or whatever car rental that just vacated. I would hope that you would continue to support what you have in place with respect to rental cars. It's been horrendous with those people, and certainly when Mr. Cabord's Golf and Gator is going to have 34 parking spots filled up every night. It's crazy with renter cars. So they're out. I would hope that you keep them out of the city because we can't coexist with the residents that we have, with his business and with a renter car. It is crazy, and I'm sure David over there knows exactly what I'm talking about. So I would totally recommend that you continue to keep the policy or the procedure that you have in place. So thank you very much.
Bill, thank you. I appreciate the comments. Appreciate the comments. Let me bring it back to the board. Does that bring up anything else for you three, or are we ready to go on to Ron? Go ahead, Ron.
Thank you.
I've rented both cars and trucks a number of times over the years, and I can't see where it would make a difference to two different sites, even 3 or 4 miles apart. It doesn't have to be within walking distance of where you reside or anything like that. That's number one. Number two, isn't North Atlantic C1? So You know, if it was allowed in C1, I'm sure maybe you could twist the wording around and present it on that. But more important, when I know there's going to be a discussion of the policy thing, I talked to a bunch of my neighbors to see, what do you feel about this? And the last one of them says, are you crazy? You know, I thought the city was trying to beautify. You know, we had the vision statement, and then, you know, we're doing what we did on streetscapes, et cetera, and so forth. Let them go someplace else. We don't need them right here. And I happen to agree with that philosophy that it should not be a part of a portion of the city where it is readily available to be seen by the public. And of course, you know, bringing up, I think David already mentioned it, when we did have it on the old Amico site where Cumberland Farms was, there was a limit of how many vehicles could be there.
Which was immediately ignored.
And there's no way that, you know, you can control that. 11 o'clock at night, 2 trucks come and stop, and, you know, they leave it there, and then they come back the next afternoon to sign the papers and pay the check. It just can't be controlled. So myself and the people I have spoken to do not feel it would be appropriate to reintroduce it into C1.
Okay, thank you, Ron. Harry?
No comment.
Okay. Lamar?
No comment. I haven't heard anything that changes my position.
You want to share with us what your position is?
Well, the position is we've got what we've got. Rental cars were a challenge to us for a lot of years. They became a challenge for beautification, let's put it that way. I don't call them an eyesore. Cars are necessary. This is the biggest rental market. I worked on a source board for KSC some years ago for the maintenance of the overall facilities of Kennedy Space Center. And we looked at transportation. And we had the main transportation manager out of Orlando McCoy Airport. At that time, he said this was the largest car rental market in the United States because everybody comes here to play. They want to rent a car. They want to drive over here. They want to drop it off. They want to leave on the ships and buses. And that has been the big bugaboo for us in Cape Canaveral. The drop-offs overcrowd the facilities that were available. So, okay, we've decided you can't have any new ones. You got to make do with the old ones. So my current position is that we have managed the problem. We got what we got. It seems to be working. We've got everybody equally dissatisfied, so that seems to be a position we're all living with. Now, on Yogi's particular location, he's got his parking and his vehicular business enclosed. And as long as it's enclosed, how can it be an eyesore? It's just enclosed on his property. So I think there's an argument there to go back and ask to have storage as if it's enclosed attractively. Otherwise, if you want one, you have to put it in M1.
Yeah, I don't want to do argument back and forth. Not argument, but just
Debate.
counterpoint. The thing that, as far as coming from a staff perspective on enforcing those standards, as you all know, we did, as Mr. Chairman said, we had I think we limited it to 10 vehicles or whatever that number was. Well, talking with the proprietor of Spaceport Amico, he used to tell me, because we got after him on a regular basis, that he had no control over when these things were dropped off. And invariably, they happened after hours and on the weekends when people were moving and wanting to drop their trucks off. And so Yogi's situation, I will say, is a little different because Yogi's, I mean, I swear, I think Yogi lives over there. He spends a lot of hours there, so he may be able to have a little better, because Spaceport Amoco closed, 5, 6 o'clock in the evening. Yogi will be there and will probably be able to, I shouldn't say probably, he would be able to monitor what's going on the property better than what happened at Spaceport Amoco. But the point is that these things are coming and going 24/7, weekends, weekdays, and it's hard to stay on top of it all the time.
And it's hard to change an ordinance, for one.
Yeah.
You change an ordinance, it applies to all. I get it. Been there. Well, let's talk about getting the vehicle to move. We have a lot of moving going on in Cape Canaveral. A lot of housing, a lot of rental, changing hands at the end of the month, and stuff moves. Where do I go to get a moving vehicle? Do I have to leave town and go to Merritt Island is there anything in Cocoa Beach you can rent now?
Presently, you have to go to Rockledge.
Rockledge? So you got to travel far away to get the means to move locally here, and there's quite a bit of it going on. How do we accommodate that? I don't have the answer right now, except you just got to go get what you need, and you got to go where you got to go. But it's not close. Do we have the means to get a moving vehicle or an U-Haul trailer? Somebody tell me how far I got to go. Where do you got to go get one now?
Rockledge.
You're kidding.
I'm not wrong about that, am I?
I haven't seen anything around here.
Yeah, I think it is Rockledge.
I don't.
Rockledge.
Strange.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
I don't know if you can get one on the beaches anywhere.
Yeah.
Our whole idea, I don't mean to interrupt you, our whole idea is to help the people. If I really want to make money in the rental unit, I could go on M1 zone.
Identify himself and swear in.
Come up, speak in the microphone, identify yourself, and
I'm
then
Yogi
make a
Patel,
statement.
owner of Yogi's Food and Discount Beverage, and interested in doing the U-Haul rental business. Our whole purpose is to help the people out. When I need them, they were behind me. Without them, I don't exist. Whoever I am right now and whatever situation I have, because of the local community. And I don't have to rely on this U-Haul business to run my life. The minute I wake up, I'm like a live dead body. I don't have much time, but my intention is to help them out. I'm not making millions of dollars from that. And it's not an easy business. You're dealing with the people who are moving and they are so desperate and mad because they are moving, they think like they are moving because of us, means the public. That's our whole idea, to help them. And my property is gated, and we have gates on the side of the road, and it's not obstacle to the traffic, or it don't look ugly from outside. And I stay at the store from 8 o'clock in the morning to 11 o'clock. And so far, nobody had dropped the vehicle in my parking lot after 11 o'clock. Because we tell them that if we are not here, then forget it. So far, we did it before because we were not aware that we have to go through all these things. Now, when the David Dickey told us, we stopped doing the business right away. Ask him. We ain't doing any illegal activity. We've been on this beach for 33 years. Each and every dime I have, you smell my blood. If I don't smell my blood, I don't want it. But my intention is to help the people out because there is nothing around here. There is nothing around here. When Alan and everybody doing, I didn't did that business. I've been there since 96. I never into the U-Haul business in Cape Canaveral. The reason I want to do, because they need the help. And sometimes when somebody go through that, they realize that how bad they need. That's all I have to say. And it can happen only with your help. I'm not insisting or nothing, or I'm not mad or nothing. If you guys can cooperate, we can help the people.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks a lot.
All right, Lamar, okay. I guess, you know, the people on this board, some of us more than others, worked on these items chronologically, and there's been a lot of thought, time, and consideration put into these. And so I think, you know, to change these would require, you know, an equal amount of time and thought and concern about ramifications, what the current direction of the city is and how this might impact that and that type of thing. And I agree with you. I think there's a need. Certainly wouldn't deny that. I just, boy, I mean, that's a tough nut. That's just a tough nut.
And it's not like we take billions of dollars from there. You know?
Yeah.
I don't have to rely on that operation to run my life.
Yeah, we get that.
I'm in alcohol, nicotine, caffeine, and gambling business, you know.
Okay, thank you.
I'm not in a rental business. But I like to help them. Because when I need them, they were behind me. That's the whole purpose I have, you know.
Okay.
Otherwise, it's a lot of pain, you know, to operate their business, you know.
Yeah. All right, thank you. Dave, are you looking for more direction, or do you have?
He didn't get any.
Well,
I think he did. I think he did.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if I heard anybody on the board say they want to change it back to where automobile and truck rental is allowed. I don't think I heard anybody say that. If I'm wrong, please, this is the time to let me know if I'm wrong on that.
Dave, for the record, I'm not for it. So, but it's clear where I
Yeah.
stand.
Yeah. So I guess let me ask this question. Can we just slice it a little bit thinner?
Sure.
Would it be the board's? Would you be open to consider one or the other? Would you like to see automobiles come back in versus truck, or truck versus automobiles, or is it both? No, we're not interested in both.
I'll answer. My opinion is, if we're going to consider it, we have to consider it for all. We can't say, okay, we can have one facility and no others, or it has to be an all or none kind of thing.
And I, for one, would not be in favor of cars or trucks. Again, makes no difference whether you're going 1 mile here or 2 miles here or whatever the case may be.
Okay. So,
Dave, can I just add one point was that from the staff report was that prior to 2003, I believe, the city allowed just rental of moving and travel trailers. So at one point, the city did have only the moving type trucks and trailers allowed rather than automobile and trucks.
All right.
So I just wanted to point that out.
Thank you.
I guess the final question I have is, I think I have the answer already, but I just want to make doubly sure. Is the board, would the board be interested in if we could come up with criteria such as buffering within enclosed storage yards? Are there conditions or situations or circumstances that the board would be interested in even considering it at that point?
But that's our charge. That's what we're supposed to do. So if it comes to us as an item, then we have to deal with it. Absolutely.
Well, the council's asking us to have a discussion about it, and that's what we're doing. I would ask you to consider this. Once upon a time, we had an enclosed storage area north of what is now Cumberland Farms. Is that still there?
It was part of the Spaceport Amoco.
I should know the answer to that.
That's
I
gone.
drive by it every day, but
Yeah,
I just
that's
don't look. Is there an enclosed storage area anymore?
That's gone.
No, it's gone.
Well, that got to be such a point of contention about storing RVs and stuff like that that wound up in that yard. But they did keep it enclosed. And I don't know if there were any problems with it because I never heard about them. If there were, maybe you guys had to deal with that and we didn't hear about it.
Yeah, we repeatedly had to cajole and
Had to go get them gathered up, huh?
yeah, it was tough.
So right now we have zoning, M1, available to put that use. Is that correct?
Yes.
I'm asking that for the record. I know the answer. Okay, so we got a place for it to be. I don't see how we can craft an ordinance for one without it including all. So we got what we got, and I'm happy with the direction we're now headed.
Mr. Chairman, I've tried to ask the same question 3 or 4 different ways, and I think I keep getting the same answer. So I think
Okay.
I think I'm getting my direction. Thank you.
All right.
David? Quick question along this same general concept. Several months ago, or maybe longer than that, you got our feelings on pavers for driveways and also flag signs. Are those dead issues or no? Okay.
No, they're not. This is going to sound horrible. It sounds like a pathetic excuse. I have been snowed under with projects and things, just a lot of stuff going on in our city right now. We have, as an example, year to year, from last year to this year, right now, our permitting is up 40%. We're putting out the door 40% more permits than we were last year. That may not sound like a lot, but when you have a little staff, we are really scrambling to keep on top of I'll call it the current planning stuff, development review, and these type discussions. And so, no, but I'm sorry, I'm rambling. The answer is no, they're not dead. Actually, Kristen has prepared some ordinances that I need to get in front of this board. So you'll be seeing a number of those over the next couple of months.
Okay.
Okay, so fellow board members, are there any other reports or any open discussion that anybody wants to have? Seeing none.
Move that the meeting be adjourned.
Need a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
We heard you clear. We're very appreciative of the thought you put into it. I understand the message, and, Dave has been doing just an excellent job. And, you guys do a great job, too.
Thank you.
Thanks for the consideration and the opportunity, anyway.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
We're gonna Google it. I wrote down the main stuff, and I can always call them or. Yeah.
This is the library. I printed it in the file, and I'm sitting
Yeah,
here.
that way you at least have.
6?
He knows that you have to have a permit.
7 to 6. And they cancel the meeting. I happened to glance over at City Hall and see all the cars, and the bright light came on.
Yes,
We changed the meeting from the,
locations. Yes, sir.
but I still put my books in there.
All right, so you won't go to library jail.
So, that's how we do it, that's how we renew. I got 3 I need to renew.
Where's Patsy?
Well.